Hello guys, good evening. Gabs here. What's in the Glass Digital Beer Streams. Welcome everyone. Nice to have you here. I hope you had a beautiful day yesterday, a beautiful bank holiday. Easter, wherever you celebrate. Could be you celebrate yourself, you celebrate not being at work. Wherever you do, I hope you're well. We haven't seen each in this platform in the Digital Beer Streams from probably almost like 10 or 15 days or something like that. Could be 10. And I decided to take a little break because with the imminent, releasing of Turning the Tide, the show that we release on YouTube, which you can find all the information in our page. We really wanted to take, a bit of time to do that, and then also making sure that we were going to have a very good lineup of guests for the Digital Beer Streams for this week, the next week. We think we've reached it. Really happy about whoever we have in this week and the next weeks on the show. So my name's Gabs. I've been working on What's in the Glass from almost a year, and I'm working in the beer industry from 10 years, and this is exactly the perfect concretization of all I've learned in these years, which is community, appreciation of the drink, appreciation of the people, learning what is important of our reality, everything that it really deserves to be mentioned, and all the people that are around these big elements which are making our life so much better. Beer, hospitality, brewing, pubs, everything you mention it, we may go in future in here. So the Digital Beer Streams is a platform where we're creating broadcasting shows, and we are meeting legends, people, very good people that know have something to say, people that are making the difference in the industry. And the reason for doing that is because this has been a very special year. We had a very intense 365 days, 12 months, whatever you call it. And we really wanted to make sure that we were going to have, contacts for the people of the industry, but also for whoever isn't into the industry or is just not working in the industry yet, or just have, curiosity about what is going on in here. I had the pleasure to meet Jules from the Hop Hideout and many other things that we're going to discover shortly another time. Unfortunately, the broadband was in our side, so we had to making sure we were going to have another with my beautiful pleasure to have another meeting online, and she really wanted to jump as soon as she could. So I'm really happy that she's gonna be here, especially because in the time that we haven't seen each other, she was really kind as well to send this beautiful patch, which I love so much, and I'm making sure I'm gonna put somewhere like the bag that I'm usually go around with, on a t-shirt or a jacket or a hat. We'll see. I just need to understand. And also, I don't have an iron yet, so I can't really do it. She will also send it this beautiful beer from a brewery that I don't really know much about. So I'm really curious to hear about this as well, because I know they are Sheffield based, and she probably know them personally as well. So please, if you can welcome Jules on the stream.
Hello. Hi.
How you doing?
Hi everybody that's tuned in. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I'm actually around my mom's house. So she's just over there. She's actually putting a beer order in, so she's telling me what beer she wants for later in the week. But
wow.
Yeah, so
That's
she's
lovely.
probably one of my best customers, actually.
What does she normally prefer to drink from your selection?
She loves anything kind of lager style, so Augustiner, Eyinger, all of the above, really. Any sort of classic German lagers. I've been getting her onto a few of the UK brewed ones because there's some fantastic ones, now. So she's had Utopian. I think she's got Turning Point, who are sort of based in Yorkshire. They did a sort of Czech style Pilsner recently.
Wow.
So she's been enjoying that. But cider as well. A Hop Hideout in Sheffield is, a craft beer focused shop, but I've always had a passion for great quality, full juice cider. Started doing natural wine as well. So, she's on cider as well as the beers. But yeah, she's quite exploratory. She likes but typically it's lagers and stouts are her thing.
Wow, you're really lucky, because even to make sure that my parents, when I'm with them, jumping on some of the most, interesting or even just well-made beers, I really need to work hard. So enjoy the good sessions with the mom. And Jules, thanks a lot for being here, and I really appreciate you found the time. I know how you're busy, and also like we are living in a bit of emotional days, because we close to the end of the hibernation. Let's call it like that. I know. And before anything else, you already mentioned the Hop Hideout, but please, can you introduce yourself and all you're doing, so we're making sure that all our viewers know how great is the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah,
please.
of course. So I'll show you I've got an old tote bag that we had done. So Hop Hideout, that was our original logo. So we started in 2013, based in Sheffield. So that's kind of why Sheffield has this big industrial past, known for making cutlery, obviously the steel industry. So that's why we've kind of got reference to the anvil and the tongs and everything with the bottle. And we opened, like I say, at the end of 2013, along in a neighbourhood in Sheffield called Abbeydale. So Sheffield's kind of got this sort of city centre, and then lots of neighbourhoods. So it kind of started in the 8th century, and all the different neighbourhoods would be have different trades, I guess. A lot of it around the rivers, because they were trying to get power and obviously use the natural resources. So it's kind of still kept. It's what I love about Sheffield. And where I'm from in the northeast, it's very similar. It has that city culture, creativity, interesting things going on, but it's also got quite a very friendly, welcoming feel to it. It still has a bit of a neighbourhood and village vibe to it. And like a third of it sits in the national park. So it's got a lot of outdoor space, which has been, I have to say, during this pandemic, it has, for a lot of people and for myself, it's been a real
relief.
Positive relief. Yeah. I know so many people that, were able to sort of go out locally and walk. And where I live in the north of the city, I'm like a 10-minute walk to a Riverland Valley. So I know that having that outdoor space has been kind of quite peaceful and a relief for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but so Hop Hideout, obviously going into about 7.5 years now, moved a couple of times. So started in an antique centre, because the Abbeydale area kind of has these huge antique centres, and we sort of rented a space, started on quite a small budget, didn't have a lot of money to start a business. So it was a way to kind of keep the costs down, give it a try, see if, how the market was for it. Sheffield does have a really big appetite for beer, I think partly to do with that industrial past. And there were some big breweries that used to be like Ward's, that used to be in Sheffield, that were sort of bought out and closed down. And then Kelham Island Brewery, which started in the Fat Cat pub in the sort of 90s, sort of re-energized the kind of cask, and I see that as craft beer. So there's always from that point, more breweries sort of opened up, and there's probably about 50 in the Sheffield City region, which is a huge kind of wider network than the city centre itself. But I know, and something like 75% of the beer brewed in Sheffield is drunk in Sheffield, which is quite a spectacular figure. And that was from this beer report, actually, that Pete Brown did in 2016. The University of Sheffield commissioned him to do some research to find out, and that's from that report.
Wow.
So Hop Hideout was well received, and we just kind of organically grew, made some money, reinvested. Primarily myself and my partner that started, but I've always been kind of the beer person and the sort of the driver of it. And we moved into a bigger cafe space in 2015. And then that's when we did the drink-in. So I kind of think around that time, we were possibly one of the sort of first drink-in beer shops, because people weren't really doing it that much at that point. So that was, kind of good to I think it's always good to keep evolving, and I love that because people would come in for, to buy some beer to take away, but then, they could have a third, have a half, that conversation over a beer just opens up so many more avenues, and it really means that you get to know your customers and the people coming in, and it makes them feel, it's friendly, it's welcoming. And you really get to explain a bit more about flavour, how beer's made, what's in the beer, which all helps. People really value that kind of insider, knowledgeable information.
Yeah.
People want to find stories, history. That's all the sort of things that I find really interesting. Then in 2019, Hop Hideout moved into a food hall. In the city centre, so that's
Lovely.
where we are now.
I saw pictures of this beautiful decorated kind of corner bit. Can you tell me if that was like the previous location is the actual location? Like, was all absolutely black and white from the outside? Which one was?
Yeah, that was the second location. So that was when we moved into the cafe space next to the antique centre. And I mean, I'll show you a recent design. So this is which obviously the patch that you got. So the guy who did our original Bottle and Anvil logo did this. He's a guy called Kev Gray, who I used to know from Sheffield, who's a great artist, kind of very inspired by graph, by tattoo work, by lots of things. But unfortunately, I couldn't get him to do. I had this idea to sort of design the shop. I really wanted to make sort of statement, and the Abbeydale area is quite well known for these big murals. There's quite a lot of street. It's quite a creative neighbourhood. There's a lot of artists and musicians that live there. It's quite a diverse neighbourhood. Lots of different communities live there actually, and it has this lovely melting pot, and it's a bit like Bedminster in Bristol if you've been there. It has a similar atmosphere to that, and I thought it'd be great because people were often coming and doing sort of a tour of the art places and popping into shops. I thought, well, I'll be a stop on the sort of street art tour, but Kev wasn't available. And a local guy in Sheffield who's amazing called Tom J. Newell does quite a similar black and white style. It's not similar, it's similar color wise, but they do have their personality and their differences. But he was really up for it, so he painted these boards and we attached them all to the shop, and it was just stunning.
I noticed. It catch my eye straight away. But all you're doing, it does have this very like bold, clear, recognizable style. And Hop Hideout is definitely the epitaph of it. You can really see what it stands for. It's cool. It's quirky. It's nice. But then I've noticed, unlike many other festivals or initiatives that are beer related, your two projects in the Beer Feast and the Sheffield Beer Week also have such a strong, bold characteristic. Can you tell us a bit more about them as well, please, Jules?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I, like a lot of people, I love music. I love art. In my spare time, I'm often found, when we're allowed, digging through record shops, going to gigs. I mean, I had more time before I started a small business to do that, but I still try. And it's the same with art, go to galleries, go to exhibitions, friends that are artists and musicians. It's always been something I've been really passionate about. So for me, it's just a natural thing to have it all together. And that's like that for a lot of people as well. And to me, beer and brewing, is another kind of creative art form. And I know some people might think that's a bit waffly, but I genuinely believe that, because when you're talking about recipe creation, people are drawing from a knowledge base, which as a musician and artist, you're also drawing from a skill set that you have, but you're, bringing it all together, and you have a vision of what you want it to, the beer to end up tasting like. Obviously, it's a bit of a journey because yeast is a live a live organism, so you don't know exactly, and equipment often breaks and things happen. But you know, again, you'll have the same in a live performance, or if an artist starts a painting, it might end up in a completely different direction to how they planned it. So for me, I guess what I'm saying, it's just a natural thing to bring all those together. But yeah, in terms of Sheffield Beer Week, so it's an annual citywide celebration. Started in 2015. I was kind of inspired by, you know, beer weeks in the States that have been going for a significant amount of time, you know, inspired by the fact that Belgian Tourism Board seems to be so behind and supportive of the brewing and, you know, bar scene there, that I wasn't seeing, you know, back at home. Even though there was this great brewing sector, like people, you know, the local sort of council didn't seem to be recognizing it. And Norwich City of Ale have been going for about 10 years doing a similar thing. So I kind of thought, why not? Why isn't it happening in Sheffield? You know, people don't maybe know about the scene outside of Sheffield. As I mentioned, a lot of the beer that's brewed here is drunk here. So some of the beer might not get out nationally. You know, also, it's an amazing city that has so many interesting, you know, architecture, even though it's in some sense, there's a lot more modernist architecture because Sheffield was affected quite significantly through bombing in the war. Yeah. But, you know, it's got beautiful parks, all these kind of things that people don't know about that they should know about. And if they come here, obviously they sort of go, oh, I didn't realize, you know, and I wanted to shout about the city a lot more and all of those, you know, brilliant stories, great breweries, and try and draw some more of the traffic away from, say, Manchester or from Leeds, which are only an hour away from Sheffield, but are often people's kind of, you know, first or second stop on a city visit. And Sheffield, you know, can, you know, in the past has been sort of a little bit way down on the list. But, you know, you just see the positive of beer tourism. You know, I mean, let's be honest, you know, if people know that there's this sort of amazing trail of different types of pubs, you know, brewery tap rooms, beer shops you can drink in, like quirky bars, really individualistic, you know, but what they all have in common is that they serve and really care about the beer. You know, you get some fantastic cask beer and you'll get pubs with, you know, multiple, like 10 cask hand pulls that, you know, are amazingly well kept. And that's something we should be shouting about, you know, Absolutely. As well as places like Hop Hideout that might have a lambic or a spontaneous spontaneous beers, you know, a huge range, which, you know, you might not see typically in a lot of places as well. So there's lots of diversity within that now in Sheffield, which is brilliant. And, you know, people might come to visit and do those trails, but they spend the money with local taxis, they spend the money at local restaurants, they spend the money at local hotels, and that's obviously all a huge plus for the city. And I think with this pandemic, I mean, it's something that should be celebrated because the regenerative ability of beer and the brewing sector for, you know, a post-industrial city like Sheffield. You know, you can see the story mirrored in the States and so many other places all around the world. And I think sort of post-pandemic, we really need to take the momentum to shine a light on the independent sector, because I think that that's the sector that's really going to add vibrancy back to the high street. Because unfortunately, like in Sheffield, there's some big flagship stores that are closing and are leaving, you know, and they're just, it's sad. And again, this is why we need to sort of be really positive and shout about the independent sector, because that's what's going to bring the vibrancy and keep the footfall and the money in the local economy, really.
You want to have in your city people that are going around, they're proud about what they can find in the high street, in the smaller street, in the cool areas. Like, Of course, I'm based in London, so I see things hugely different from area to an area. I know that if you are in North London, you potentially don't go down to South London, or maybe like East or West. I'm sure, again, given how much visibility all of these platforms then came out during the pandemic gave to places where probably someone never really thought about going and having a look at, there is going to be interest right now, because I want to come to see how Sheffield Beer City, what the city has to offer me, and I know it's going to be slightly different from, as you said, maybe like bigger cities or even smaller city on another direction of it. And this is the beauty, and I can't celebrate more the beginning of the discovery. It probably starts in a pub. You go to somewhere, you want to, visit the place, and the place where you stop after a long walk, or because you're thirsty, because you're hungry, it's going to be a pub probably. You're going to speak with the people there. You're going to find out more things. So yes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I always say as well that they're often the places to get your insider tips. So you head to the pub and you ask them where they, go for food, where they go for drinks. And that's where you'll get the really good tips when you visit a city as well.
You give me a good tip, because I never taste any beers from this brewery. And this is incredible. It's a Belgian pale ale, actually. Yeah, 6.2. You can say a blonde beer. And it's just like, tell me again the name of this brewery, please, Jules.
Yeah, well, this is quite an interesting one in terms of sort of the story and the backstory, because St. Mars the Desert are a couple, Martha and Dan, and they probably started in Sheffield, I think, possibly at the end of 2019, I want to say. Or was it actually, it might have been 2018, Christmas 2018, they had the first beer out. And so they're only a few years old in Sheffield. However, they've both been in the beer scene for 20, 25 years. And like Dan definitely has. And they actually had a brewery out in the States called Pretty Things. And had a really big following, actually. I think Saison was kind of one of their Jackdaw, which was a Saison style, was kind of a big pivotal beer, actually. I think a lot of other breweries started brewing Saisons and having a sort of a big Belgian focus around that. But they closed up, travelled the world and ended up in Sheffield. So this is what I was saying about interesting. Sheffield draws people in, and there's some really interesting stories, people doing some amazing things. They just kind of need to be discovered, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like again, I think I never seen a bold cursive writing on a can, and I've noticed.
Yeah, they do all the artwork themselves. Actually, Dan and Martha often do all the drawing and everything. So they literally do everything, which is pretty impressive. And they've got a little tap room, which is beautiful. It's got it's just when you sat in it, you forget, because where they're based in Sheffield is seriously like quite an industrial area. There's, a tire garage nearby. There's wastelands. It is still quite an industrial part of Sheffield. And then there's them. And then you sit in this little tap room and you kind of forget where you are. It's such a has such an inviting, warm feeling to it. And they've got all of this kind of signage and old Belgian or German kind of beers that they're into, little tin tackers, and it's got so much sort of personality from them. It's lovely. But this is what, again, Sheffield isn't like a carbon copy. Sometimes I feel like you can go to different cities. London is quite a good example of this, and you'll kind of walk into a bar, but it's a bit of a carbon copy of whatever is in fashion at the time.
Yep.
Sheffield doesn't really follow fashion. Like Sheffield people do what Sheffield people are into, and that can be so varied. And that's what I love again about it, is that you find, for me, more personality and unique driven places. People aren't kind of following hype or following fashion. They're just doing the things that they love and that they're interested in and are passionate about. And Sheffield has room for that, which is again something that I feel should be celebrated. Really.
Jules, like we've been chatting the previous time, and we didn't have as much as confidence about the imminent future as much as we do have now, because the numbers behind the vaccines, because there seems to be a sort of confidence from the politics, but also within the industry itself. So we're next to our reopening, we're next to having places open again, even if it's just by a partial point of view, which is going to be just on the outside, maybe like collection, and of course masks and distance and sanitizing everything. But overall, are you more positive than the last time that we meet each other? Do you see we're going in the right direction right now?
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a different story now. I mean, it's been a bit complex for me, I guess, in a way that, so sort of beer shops and brewery shops were classed as essential retail. So sort of have been able to stay open throughout, because I'm based, from 2019, I moved into a food hall in the city centre of Sheffield. I haven't been able to do that. For obvious reasons, with it, being a big, essentially sort of restaurant hospitality space. So I just have been really operating for the last 12 months, Sheffield home delivery. So me literally driving around in my car, delivering packages to people, and mail order. So we sort of post boxes out. We've got a website that people order on, and that ships UK mainland. And then obviously things have chopped and changed with different, as we've gone through the pandemic, where there's been different changes. So we've done click and collect when we've been able to, obviously not had that when we weren't. There was a period between July and October where we were open. Obviously that was PPE, sanitizer, cleaning regimes, minimize number of people in our space in the food hall, table service, because we do obviously quite a lot of drinking. It's a big food hall space compared to our previous site where it was about 20 people. The food hall has about 1,000. I think under COVID it operates at about 300 to 400. So you can see how it's very reduced to its usual. But positively, now we're about a week away. So I think I'm going to open for walk-in trade for the first time since Christmas, because we were able to be open as a shop in December. So I'll be open next Friday, Saturday, Sunday for walk-in, which will be great. Obviously, we'll have the screens up and everything else. There's a big announcement tonight. There'll be some more guidance coming out, which I'll have to spend a significant amount of time reading through to make sure I'm compliant and safe and secure. So that's positive. Sheffield Beer Week, I did a virtual beer week a few weeks ago. So it's normally the second week in March. And I just wanted to kind of keep the momentum going, check in on people. We did a bit of a brewery launch actually on Instagram Live on the Monday of the week. And I was chatting to St. Mars the Desert, actually, to Dan and Martha and to Neek Sembruco and Abbeydale. And they sort of came on and shared with viewers, how they've been traversing the pandemic, what they have planned for reopening and things like that. So that was really well received. And I think it was a good moment to do it, because it was kind of reminding people that, hospitality is still here. Breweries, are just we're all just about holding on, but we're all really looking forward to seeing people again properly, seeing our customers, reconnecting with people, obviously, safely and within, the parameters that we need to operate within. But, it was just nice to kind of even virtually reconnect with people. I was going to show you some old guides, actually. That was 2018. So Heather at the Rutland pub, which is a great pub, brilliant jukebox, which unfortunately I found out that they weren't really able to have the jukebox all last year because obviously there were restrictions on volumes. So they actually ended up. So I'm looking forward to at some point the jukebox returning. So who knows? And then in 2019, that was True North Brewco, I think that one. But you can see the sort of the cask.
Yeah.
The sort of the beer, which I love that photo. Mark Newton.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Mark Newton managed to capture that. He's a brilliant photographer. Does a lot in beer. And him and Nikki Pete actually have done things like photography projects throughout Sheffield Beer Week. So they've been quite involved. And Nikki's actually got some family in Sheffield, so that I feel like there's always a Sheffield connection, which is a theory of mine.
I used to have so many friends in, especially food vendors, Sheffield born, and even the businesses sometimes were born in Sheffield, and somehow I found them around London. And I do have some of my best memory chatting with them when I was consuming beer. They were telling me about this city, the spirit, the strength. And it's so interesting to speak with you now and confirm the stamina of the place itself, like as much has to give to visitors. Is brilliant. I like that.
It's a city of doers. People just get on with things. And there's a big, I know the local council had a project called Sheffield Make.
Okay.
It's all about, all the trade, whether it's, the sort of little mesters that used to make all the knives and cutlery and other really detailed objects, to musicians, to artists, to, in my eyes, brewers and everybody else. But there's such a huge creative scene here, really. But yeah, I didn't talk about Indie Beer Feast, actually, did I? So
please.
I've always wanted to do a beer festival. I mean, sort of hugely inspired by some of the independent ones that popped up in the last few years, sort of 5 to 7 years. You've got like the Independent Manchester Beer Convention, and like there was the Birmingham Beer Bash, London Craft Beer Festival. So I've always wanted to do something like that. And I just thought, why not go for it? So in 2018, I did sort of the first Indie Beer Feast, and it was at this beautiful old cinema on Abbeydale Road. It built in the 1920s, been lovingly restored. It's just such it's a bit like the Victoria Baths for Indie Man. It just has that atmosphere that you just can't make happen because it's history and it's time and it's all of these things. And we just did a one day. I tried to keep it simple, not get too stressed about it, because I literally did everything pretty much, book the breweries, book the musicians, social media, like
running it,
all of it. And even like handballing all of the glasses into the building, all of it. Obviously, great team of volunteers that helped me out as well, that want to have a beer festival in the hometown. I think we had about 700 people in that first session. Lots of good feedback, things to obviously work on as well. And then 2019 went to 2 days. So Friday and Saturday, and it's kind of the first weekend of Sheffield Beer Week. So the idea is it's kind of, it kickstart the sort of full week of celebrations. Breweries come up, they all do events during the beer week. Obviously local breweries like, St. Mars, I think that was their first beer festival in Sheffield as St. Mars, as their new brewery that they poured at. So it can just all work really well, nicely together to get excitement and interest, and share the sort of beer scene that we love, actually. So
more festival like that, more like as soon as possible, because that it's so important, and it drives really new people inside, showing them how well we get along when we are in a situation like that, especially if someone like you, which I'm sure it's capable to invite breweries and does have the right attitude, know how to well behave within the industry along everyone, they're part of it, because I'm sure you prefer to work with breweries which people, who they are behind, and what they're standing for, how they treat the employees, and all of that, right?
I mean, for me, that's as important as the beer. I mean, the ethos and how they operate their business is like 100% as important as as the beer. So I always try and make sure that the people that I work with, do have the right ethos, and they are trying to, make a positive difference in the industry and everything. I think that's really important. It's just something that I really value. I mean, we've always tried to support the Everyone Welcome initiative, which, if people don't know about, there is a website you can have a look at, but it's just about doing simple things like making sure you've got some gender neutral toilets, obviously advertising that you are a welcoming space. We tried to make the Saturday session, the day session, family friendly, because I don't want as a single parent, coming from a single parent family myself, with my mum, I don't want people to be excluded from having a social life, because of that situation, and I think done right, and why not? And making sure volunteers and the breweries that were pouring, knew about the Everyone Welcome initiative, and also knew about if something happens, to make me aware, so that we could deal with that. Obviously we have paid door staff on as well, who I also talked about the Everyone Welcome initiative too. I always try and have one man and one woman on the door, things like that as well. So there's things that you can do in the background, and obviously how you market and advertise something as well to get that message across. But it's always a work in progress. You've always got to try and get feedback and develop things for the better, because you don't always get things right straight away.
Yep. I do have a question for you, Jules, which is probably, there is a reason for it, because we're doing this show because we believe that somehow the digital experiences are going to be part of the hospitality to the beer industry going forward, even after the full relaxation of all the measures, pandemic measures. So the question is very simple. Do you think that all of these digital experiences are here to stay, or somehow they're going to leave us after the pandemic for just on offline communication? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I've sort of been thinking quite a bit about it as well. I think as everyone's been, quite reflective, and obviously at times it's the only socializing we've been able to bloody do, isn't it? So, I mean, I've really, it's been invaluable for me, for my mental health, to be able to connect with people in different ways. It doesn't always just have to be a Zoom call or an Instagram live. There are kind of lots. I think that's one of the positives. There seems to be a lot more access for most people. Obviously, I know not everyone has an access to great Wi-Fi or broadband all around the country, and obviously that's something in rural areas and different demographics maybe that don't have access to it. So that is an ongoing challenge for a lot of people. But I think it's been quite a positive I've been able to join like panel debates and talks in America, which has been great. I did something, I think the Chicago Brewing Museum did some fantastic workshops I was able to join. I did join some sort of fermentation festival that was going on in Florida, which was amazing. And then also from a business perspective, Hop Hideout was closed again at the end of October when all hospitality was shut, and we always do something annually for our birthday. I like to have a bit of fun, don't take myself too seriously. Like in the past, a couple of years ago, because me and my partner Will are both huge Bill Murray fans, so we did like a whole birthday of collaboration beers around Bill Murray films. And I know, it was so fun. We had a fancy dress party, and this was at the old shop, the black and white shop that you had talked about earlier. And we had like a fancy dress party where you sort of came as your favourite Bill Murray character from his, a wonderful back catalogue of films. And this year, like I just thought, people are feeling down. At that point, we were sort of pretty much a full year of a pandemic, and people were struggling, and I kind of wanted to do something really positive and uplifting sort of before Christmas. Which can be a difficult time for a lot of people. Christmas isn't always a wonderful celebration for many people, depending upon their, family or personal situation. So we did a virtual birthday party. So for a full day on a Saturday, I think we had beer yoga to start with. I got, I hired a yoga instructor to do that. We did a brewery tour with St. Mars the Desert. They hosted that, which was great. I had Pete Brown, beer writer and broadcaster. He'd just launched, or he was about to launch, the Beer by Design book. So he did a talk for us, and we had a quiz at the end as well. And I got my friend actually, Jez, who runs a jazz night in Sheffield at a pub. And so he's a really great pianist, and so he actually played tunes that people had to guess. And it was just, I think we had about kind of 50 to 80 people, joining in throughout the day. And, people after the event were just like very kindly sort of saying how much they enjoyed it and how much, it uplifted them. So to answer your question, I do think that ongoing, there is a place for virtual and digital events. And, especially if it means you can connect people from all around the world, or, as I mentioned before, accessibility, if people aren't able to, afford to travel to places, or physically aren't able to maybe visit places, or have family commitments, actually, you can make very accessible digital events. So, I think that's a huge bonus, and is a really valuable thing to explore more of. I actually asked the question on Twitter to our, to my customers and followers, and 70% of people said the same. They agreed. But I think what it'll probably be sporadic. Mm-hmm. I think the better ones will be, I think it's better to do quality over quantity. And I think definitely people have felt a little bit, there was probably a point in this pandemic where there was just too much going on, and it was just, you were like, oh, get me away from, social media, my eyes are going square and all the rest of it. So I think there's a balance to be found, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I do think it has a place. And I think if it's, if you invest in the content, then it'll be a successful thing. So I'm definitely going to continue to do some digital events. Yeah.
I absolutely believe the same, and there's going to be a good balance between the two. And also, I think it's going to be always just mention the possibility, if not in person, to do something similar to this, maybe in a slightly different way, but on the digital world. I totally agree with you. And Jules, again, I can speak with you for days, and it's going to happen the day that I will come to visit you in Sheffield, because I know I have a friend, because I'm going to wear this that day.
Yeah.
Thank you. There is good beer in your city, and you know how to do events and how to feel people welcome. So thank you very much for being here.
It's
Thank you very much.
Can I plug a couple of events? Would that be all right? Only because we were talking about digital stuff, so I'm doing a cider event in June with Duck Chicken Cider, who are a couple based in London. And I think the valuable thing about some digital events is, I mean, I don't know if you've been to some events when we were able, to in person. Sometimes you couldn't always hear what was being said, especially if it's a loud, noisy bar. And you maybe didn't feel like you could ask a question. I do think the digital thing, you can hear it, what's being said by the hosts a lot more clearly, typically. And, there's more opportunity to ask question, whether it's in the chat or, whether it's on screen. So you can learn, a lot more, I think, which is good. And I'm also doing partly for the International Women's Collaboration Brew Day that happened for International Women's Day back in March. So there's a UK thing organised by Sophie Durand, and lots of breweries from all over the world get involved in that. Brew a beer, sort of celebrating women in beer, and also trying to kind of broaden, we'll get more people into it. Oh, really? That's the point. Amplify, I think I was trying to say. So I'm doing a tasting of 6 beers with a wonderful woman called Julie O'Grady, who runs Neptune Brewery, and also Ladies That Beer. So we're going to be doing that at the end of April. I've got to put it on sale in about a week's time. I'm just waiting to find out about the beers because some of them are still in tank and they haven't been canned yet. And then the other big thing, which is more of a national event that sort of developed from something that happened in the pandemic, is Indie Beer Shop Day. So I'm trying to build on an event that we did called Indie Graft, where we brewed a beer with Don Zoco Brewing, and it was released exclusively in about sort of 40 or 50 shops around the beer shops around the country. Inspired by Record Store Day a little bit. So we're sort of building on that. We've got a definition, we've got a bit of an ethos, and we're just about to release a bit more information about it. But there is a website. I think it's indiebeershopday.uk. There's a Twitter and all the usual Instagram and stuff as well. So people should definitely look at that, because if you don't, like with Record Store Day, it's about supporting your local beer shop, your local record shop, all the places that you love, that you want to hang around and that you really value. So we're sort of celebrating the sector as a unified voice, really. So I'm excited about that.
I love the idea. I've never heard anything like this before. It really does make sense, considering that Record Store Day exists. So it totally makes sense. Wow.
And exactly, it's what we need from this pandemic. We need to celebrate that these local shops add vibrancy to their high street, to their community, and that's exactly what we need to sort of get us positively out of this pandemic. Obviously, everyone's going to be, operating safely and securely and within the guidance. But, it's exactly what we need. We need to sort of engage and get people back on the local high street, don't we? So it seemed like we should go for it. So there's a sort of organising committee, and then like I say, there's up to about 50 plus shops listed on the website now. So yeah, you can find out if your local one's involved. If they're not, give them a nudge and send them our way and get them involved.
I'm moving down to South London, which is an area that historically isn't that rich as East or North London. But I already find out that there are some decent places, especially in the area where I will be. So I see if they may be interested and let you know if
definitely
something we can build, a link between South London and Sheffield. Who knows?
Let's see. Definitely.
Oh man, Jules, I love to speak so much with you, and I truly hope, again, last time that I was in Euston Station, they didn't let me get in, even if I just had to get the overground to coming back at home. And I know that was the fact because the national lockdown and everything. Once I know I can take trains and I can travel a bit around the UK, there are so many places. Sheffield is definitely on top,
Oh,
not the
yeah.
number one and number two. So
yeah, well, you should come. Hopefully it'll be all right by this time, but obviously second week in March is when we usually have Sheffield Beer Week, so that would be a good time to put in the diary in your calendar.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be summer if they let me do it. So first on the summer, and then I'm coming back in March as well. Thank you very much again. It's been very kind. You've been very kind, and I again, I think we cover so much, and I wish you a beautiful restart of the activity and a beautiful stop of the hibernation for the city of Sheffield and the rest of the UK as well. And let's see what Boris said, because apparently he spoke just now. So let's have a look. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me. It's been wonderful to be on as well. Thanks, Gabs.
All the best, Jules. See you around. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.